Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to discuss an important idea that came to me when I was starting out composing, and I was really torn on whether you should compose at the piano or you shouldn't. And there are different schools of thought saying that you should compose at the piano because it's really helpful. It can help you get musical ideas really fast, and it just kind of makes sense. And there's another school of thought saying, if you're a composer, you shouldn't even need an instrument to be able to compose. You should just be good enough and skilled enough in order to just use pen and paper to write. So I want to kind of dissect this, and I want to make a conclusion up front if you don't want to see the entire video, but if you do, just stick around. But I'm going to go out to say that there are different processes, and everyone really varies in their own creative process, and there's not one right answer to this. And I just want to drill that home here. There is not a single one-size-fits-all solution to the issue when it comes to composing at the piano. So just keep that in mind throughout this video, that everyone is different and everyone has their own idiosyncrasies that make them a composer, and we shouldn't try to enforce one right answer here. And also, if you've never tried composing at the piano, I'm sure most of you have, but if you haven't, then I'd say you should try it. If you haven't used pen and paper only, or if you haven't even used a computer to compose, then I say try that. So just try the other side and try to create your own conclusions based on of what you experienced, and don't think that everything I say is concrete. I think you should just try both sides and see which ones you prefer, and I'll just share some of my own experience and some quotes from other famous composers that comment on this idea. So the two main camps in this is either for piano or against piano when writing music. And the for piano people, people that want to sit at the piano when they write music, is that when you sit at the piano, it's a lot easier to get musical ideas, motifs, and other themes. It's easier to figure out harmonic ideas and just see the bigger picture. And there's also a ton of famous composers that always used the piano when they wrote, like Stravinsky, for example. And I just want to share a quote from David Gillingham, who's a band composer, and he has some thoughts on composing at the piano. Quote, "I seldom compose away from the piano. To paraphrase Stravinsky, rarely do melodies and themes come to me away from the piano, and if they do, I often kick myself for not having pen and manuscript paper ready to write the ideas down. As a younger composer, I only heard the timbre of the piano when I composed at the piano. Now, however, it is easy for my ear to perceive ideas at the piano as various instrumental timbres. This is certainly not an innate ability, and has been acquired through years of writing for band and orchestra, as well as various chamber ensembles. Therefore, while at the piano, I not only compose, but I score simultaneously. Couple this with computer technology, and the process is streamlined." So there's a ton of great ideas that David shared here. One being that when you sit at the piano, obviously it's a lot easier to get these musical ideas going because they're at your fingertips literally, and that can be really helpful when you're trying to quickly get ideas out of your head onto paper through the medium of a piano, which can kind of streamline that too. And he also touches upon this idea that when he was a beginning composer, when he pressed notes on the piano, whatever you played on there, it just sounded like the piano, obviously, and the timbre just sounded completely purely piano. But once he moved on and had a lot of more experience and composed a lot more, he was able to score simultaneously. So what that means is that any note he played, he could assign that to a specific instrument in his head, like anything up here, that could have been like a violin or something. Whatever the instrument is, he was able to orchestrate from the piano, and that is something you kind of acquire later on through experience, and that is just kind of a pattern that a lot of composers share. There's a lot of people that say when you start composing, you prefer to, you just tend to use the piano a lot more. But once you're a little more experienced and through the years, you generally gradually move away from using the piano till eventually you don't even need one to just write music, and you're a lot more skilled and able to create these sounds in your head and kind of write them down there. Okay, so the next school of thought is against piano, and you shouldn't use it, people tend to not use the piano to write music. And the main idea here is that when you sit at the piano, you tend to revert to specific musical chords, shapes, or just using similar accompaniment ideas. Basically, you're writing for piano, not the instruments that you want to. So if that confuses you, I really don't blame you. Let me share a quote from Julie Giroux, who's one of my favorite band composers, and she can kind of delve a little more deeper into this. Quote, "I became comfortable with getting the music on the page very quickly. Too comfortable. My fingers and my brain found notes, but over the years, my fingers have developed a certain way they like to play and pick out similar intervals, sounds, directions, and chords. No matter what I did, they had some influence on my music. I didn't want that to happen anymore, so I got rid of the keyboard." She continues, "There isn't any combination of notes that you're going to bang out that you haven't already hit before, so why do it? Why limit your music to that box? If the keyboard restrains my imagination anyway, I want it gone," end quote. So there you have it. If you compose at the piano, it might be easier for you to put your hands in a certain shape, or limit your creativity to things that you can play by your fingers. And the thought is that if you have no piano, then it's a lot easier to be more original and to kind of step outside the box and play things that you would have never thought of before, due to the restrictions that could be caused by using the piano. And another argument can be made that using the piano can be a little more slow or cumbersome compared to just using a computer or using other media to compose. And I don't know about this thought. I think that everyone's a little bit different, and there's some people that say that if you are a composer, you shouldn't even need to use the piano. But again, I think that's kind of an unhealthy comment on the whole thing. Simply because people are different and their upbringing and musical training varies on a spectrum. And I don't think we should enforce one right idea when it comes to composing. Either use a piano or don't. So I think it's unhealthy in that sense that we should try to do that. And I think you should try both sides to see which one you prefer, and maybe if you like both of them, you might fit into this third group, which I'm going to talk about right now, which is the neutral group. And people that are neutral on this topic kind of use both methods. Some of them like to use the piano sometimes to maybe check the pitch, or occasionally improvise to get some musical ideas going, and then they might move away and just use manuscript paper or the computer to write. And they kind of take from both sides of this and kind of reap the benefits of both in that way. And I would say I fit into that group personally. I've been on other sides of I guess if we put this on a spectrum where you compose at the piano and you don't, and then the middle part is the neutral. I've been on almost every single side of the spectrum so far, and I'd say right now I'm a little bit towards the middle, and I kind of use the piano sometimes when I write when I need to. It really depends on the piece, and sometimes I just try to stay away if I'm reverting to specific chords that I always use when I start writing. So I think each has their own benefits and drawbacks, so I really recommend you to try both and to come to your own conclusion, and try not to take everything I say too seriously, because everyone is different, right? So what did you think? If you agree with me or you have some complaints about what I said, then leave them down below. We can start a discussion, and you can also share any other tips that I didn't mention here. I have a composing career playlist when it comes to getting money and commissions as a composer, as well as how to get performed. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and keep writing.